Welcome back, everyone. My name is Andrew Cox, research analyst here at FreightWaves, and today I have a unique opportunity to lead a panel of discussion between three industry experts in three different segments of the industry. That is a shipper, a forwarder, and a business operations or a freight operations outsourcing expert. So I have Michael Campisi, SVP of EFW, Estes Forwarding Worldwide. I have Eric Goldobsky, Senior Director of Operations at Horizon Fitness, a brand of Johnson Health Tech. And I also have Donna Kintop, SVP of Client Experience North America from DDC FPO. How are we, everyone?
Morning, Eric.
Excellent. Thank you. Great. Good to be here.
So a lot is being made right now of the rise in e-commerce, the rise of buy online, pick up in store, the low inventory levels right now. And I think I'd like to start with those inventory levels. So we at FreightWaves and many other in the industries have kind of been touting this low inventory to sales ratio as evidence that the freight bull market can continue, that there's still good times ahead because we're going to need those stocks replenished. Are we correct in that thought?
I think eventually we'll probably see inventories get back to normal levels. But I think I'll speak directly to my industry. It's going to change which portion of an industry potentially will be, the demand will be greatest on. For example, we have a commercial division of our business, a large fitness company that sells both to commercial and retail. And I'm on the retail side, and we had about an 8 to 10 year bull market basically for commercial, and retail lagged far behind. With the onset of the pandemic and COVID, those inventories had to switch almost overnight. And everything was delayed. We produce most of our items, and frankly, our entire industry produces most of our items out of China. So we had a lag of the ability to build those products and get them to us. And we're still trying to catch up on that demand. So I think eventually as things settle out, as we sort of get back to, I guess what you would call the new normal, things are starting to open up, but shifting demand is going to really change industries significantly as far as where they're going to put those resources moving forward.
And Michael, how does that impact you? Do you think, I was having this conversation with another researcher here at FreightWaves on whether low inventory levels benefits forwarders, benefits trucking, or if it's a hurt for trucking? I mean, how do you guys see it?
Well, you know, on the forwarding side, we have a lot of what we do is on the expedited side. So I think as inventory levels are low, our customers are trying to push those inventories forward as fast as they can. So, you know, there is a bit of a benefit, I think, to those of us that are in the expedited side of the business. You know, it also forces us to consider, you know, we have some warehousing expertise as well. So allowing us to offer our customers the ability to place their inventory forward. And it impacts us because we have to start considering this change for our shippers. We have to adapt to it for sure.
Well, let's bring in Donna here. She is, of course, from the DDC group, specifically DDC FPO, which is the freight process outsourcing. And DDC FPO is focused on supporting back office operations for both motor carriers and intermediaries. Donna, how does the changes that Eric mentioned earlier impact how you've adapted operations and how you're offering things to transportation providers?
From a business processing outsourcing side, it's crucial to us to be able to be adaptable to our carrier 3PL partners to make sure that as they modify their business model and have to adapt to the shipper's requirements, we can provide the support that they need.
That's a good point. There's been a lot of disruptions. There's been, I mean, from all sizes, companies big to small have dealt with disruptions, as we've talked about, either at the ports or in China where most things are manufactured. You know, big decisions are having to be made at, especially I point to the CPG and the food providers, because we think they weren't able to keep up with that surging demand in March. And because of that, many people are rethinking their inventory levels and how they can maybe transition to a more redundant, possibly just-in-case type of system rather than a just-in-time system. But Johnson Health Tech and Horizon Fitness, you guys serve a much different market. It's not a CPG or a food market. You guys are, of course, providing exercise equipment. How has Johnson Health Tech and Horizon Fitness adjusting their supply chains with regard to just-in-time versus just-in-case?
We're an industry that took a huge change. Again, we had to shift basically our entire model from a commercial business to a home business overnight. What we're doing at this point is we're trying to pull forward as much production as we possibly can and get that into the U.S. as quickly as we possibly can. We're actually in the process of opening additional warehouses to allow us to have the flexibility to have those products available to the consumer. And we're actually increasing our inventory as we can. We're having issues keeping up with demand at this point in time, but the plan is longer term to carry a little bit larger amount of stock for situations just like this. Again, it's kind of that adapting to the new normal. And we feel situations like this are going to increase people staying at home and in some cases forced to stay at home. In our industry, people still like to exercise, and that has really changed things. And we're getting some data that's telling us 25% of the people that have a gym membership may never go back to a gym. So we're taking that data and rolling that into our forecasts moving forward and making sure that we're planning significantly up over what we were looking at previously.
Well, I can agree with that. Anecdotally, I haven't been to the gym in months. I don't know whether it's because I'm afraid to get sick or because I'm lazy. But either way, I definitely see the transition to in-home. You've seen the rise that Peloton's been on. Just look at their stock over the last few months. It's been ridiculous. Everybody's working out in their homes. Michael, you spent 20 plus years at Estes Express Lines, so I think you can speak to this a little bit. You're now, of course, at Estes Forwarding. But how do these changes affect both Estes Express Lines and Estes Forwarding? People kept keeping more inventory on hand at warehousing, needing more warehousing space.
Yeah, it forces us on the non-asset side. So I'm with EFW now. We're on the non-asset side. We have a few assets. We do have some warehouses. It forces us to kind of rationalize our asset network and look at where we have those warehouses. Do we have the capacity? We're getting a lot of pressure from our customers to be able to provide more warehousing capacity, and then also they want to get closer to their customers. So how do we adapt our model to be to increase velocity, also be able to be a little more nimble? And we've been looking at a number of strategic ways to do that. So definitely challenging us. And then on the asset-based side, on the LTL side, I think similar challenge, just maybe changes some of the freight flow and the patterns for traditional LTL asset-based companies because they find themselves in the final mile business, and as customers are pushing those inventories closer to their customers and maybe changing the position of where they're putting their inventories, it's changing the balance of freight. So they're having to be a little more adaptable and operate in a little more real time.
Michael, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll definitely get into LTL discussions here in a little bit. The lines between LTL and last mile do seemingly continue to become less and less there. They become more and more blurred. Donna, I want to ask you, as we've talked over and over again, every company has dealt with disruptions through COVID-19 of all sizes across the entire global supply chain. But how can workforce planning help protect business continuity in disruptive times like these?
From an operational partnership perspective, workforce planning is super key. We work with each of our individual partners and have recommended to the industry that we look outwards throughout the fourth quarter, beginning of the first quarter, to look at how you're going to expand and contract your workforce. Some of the U.S. requirements and regulations at this point in time will have you handcuffed to certain staffing levels and times of engagement. In utilizing operational partners, we have the ability to expand and contract as needed. So you can plan, but not necessarily implement contingency plans, to help supplement your in-house staff.
Donna, you mentioned a little about consumer behavior there. I want to pass this to Eric. I want to talk a little bit about consumer behavior. We know that e-commerce has been accelerated. How much, whether it's 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, we won't know until the dust settles and we have a vaccine and people can return back to some sort of normalcy of life. I want to ask you, what are you guys expecting? You've said you've made this big transition from commercial to in-home. What are you guys expecting once there is a vaccine and people can go back to their gyms? I know you said 25% may never go back to their gyms, but what are you guys preparing for?
You know, we're really preparing for a world that's going to be, frankly, much more online based. Our competitors, such as Peloton and things that we are doing, are really driving technology into our products that is allowing you to basically bring that gym experience home. So we see a situation where this pandemic has really changed the thoughts of a lot of people about, one, purchasing products online, but also just the online experience in general. And so we don't see this trend for our business ending anytime soon. You did mention the 25%. We've seen a 600% increase this year in our business online. And we don't expect that, we don't expect 600 next year, but we certainly don't expect it to go backwards either. So I think what we're seeing is everyone in the industry adapting to a new world that we're living in. And I really don't think it's probably going to ever kind of go back to the, everyone going to the gym. Everyone's trying to bring that experience home. And whether it's through the e-commerce, through our experience of a community online, those are going to be trends that are going to continue far into the future.
All right, Michael, there was the key word, right? Everyone needs to adapt. Let's talk about that traditional LTL model for a second. You foreshadowed it a moment ago. Looking ahead to 2021, will the traditional approach to LTL come under fire?
Well, it won't come under fire. I think, the LTL is still primarily a B2B service, right? I think when you think of an LTL carrier, you think of bumping dock to dock on the pickup and delivery side. You think manufacturing, distribution. What's changed is LTL carriers have really had to adapt their services. So many things are in play now when you're delivering to the home that aren't in play when you're in a B2B environment. Your technology has to evolve. That driver customer interaction has to evolve. You have to expect that somebody's going to be there shooting you with their phone and potentially putting you online in terms of how that experience went. That customer experience for the consumer is often a very personal thing. If you think about Eric's product, I'm pretty excited if I'm waiting for this for my new piece of exercise equipment to roll into my house. I want that to go really well. I'm anticipating it. It's kind of a big purchase for me. So there's emotion involved. And if it doesn't go well, we're probably going to hear about it online. I think, on the EFW side, players like us, one of the reasons non-asset players get involved is because that network out there that are in that final mile, it's just not as predictable and reliable as as you see on the small pack side. If you order a new Bluetooth headset, you have a pretty predictable experience in terms of what's going to happen in that delivery. It's not the case if you order a piece of exercise equipment. So we're really having to challenge our asset-based providers out there on their technology, their level of integration, their ability to survey, the type of equipment that they have, and then of course, just even their hiring practices. So I think whether you're on the non-asset side, kind of on the like EFW, or you're with a big LTL company, all of that's in play because so many of the things that were bought in stores and moving through DCs and DC to store, where we didn't control that final delivery, now we're in it, and whether we like it or not, we have to evolve. So we're seeing a lot of that happen in our industry.
Donna, how have those expanded services that LTLs are now offering to their customers, how has that changed what they're requesting from you at DDC FPO over the past few months?
I think one of the most notable changes we've seen is the quality of the data that's required. Data is moving just as quickly as freight is moving. The quality of that data is critical to accurate deliveries, improving client experiences and those consumer experiences. So we've had to, continuously improve what we do in the way of ensuring our turnaround times are met, that our data accuracy levels are as high as they can possibly be, and that we're following the sense of urgency that each one of our accounts requires.
Andrew, if I can add something to what Donna just mentioned, I've lived in the data world for the last several years, and whether we like it or not, in transportation, we've been required to become information service providers as much as we are transportation service providers. We're all challenged with that, and whether it's an invoice having the magic number that it takes to get paid, or the right pickup tender number to make sure that you reconcile your data. If you're using, I don't care if you're an asset-based carrier or a non-asset-based forwarder like we are, data is so critical. Our systems, carrier systems and transportation service provider systems are complex. They're challenging. The degree to which workforce providers like Donna can augment what we do, can kind of overlay our technology to enhance it, and if they're there for us to be able to flex from a workforce perspective, they have to be able to meet the same data demand. So, and one of the challenging things about that is we're dealing with more and more automation. So, for example, on the freight payment side, there's so many companies that are putting so much automation in on the freight payment side, which is great. It's very highly efficient, and there's a lot of automation getting dropped into transportation. A lot of it's designed to kind of manage the happy path of a shipment, or the happy path of that shipment life cycle from order to cash. But when things fall off the rails a little bit and something doesn't go quite right, those people have to come back in and be able to quickly resolve that. So on the workforce side, I think we have to make sure that the people we hire are capable of dealing with some of those exceptions, that we get as good as we can at making the data work for us. But we certainly can't ignore the people and their ability to work through those exceptions and when things don't go quite so right.
That's right. Technology always seems to make it easier until it doesn't. This has been a great conversation, and I want to thank all three of you, Donna, Eric, and Michael. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and everyone stay tuned. We've got a lot ahead of you. We've got a big day planned. Everyone stay tuned and enjoy.